I work from an integrative perspective, which means that I use multiple approaches in the work that I do. And one of those is what's referred to as ACT, which is acceptance and commitment theory. And basically, what it involves is very similar to the idea behind the Serenity Prayer. It's finding acceptance for whatever it is that is your current reality, and then committing to taking action where applicable, and I suppose asserting agency over what you can influence. And I suppose to break that down a little bit, it means that even if you don't like where you're at, or even if you don't like what has happened in your past, you cannot change it because that is what it is, And it's very similar to a concept that I love of radical acceptance, and that's basically accepting life on life's terms. We like to think that by thinking something differently, that somehow it's going to be true. And the reality is it's not. I mean, if somebody has hurt us in the past, or if we feel that they've betrayed us, no amount of wishing it different or praying it different is going to make it different. So the only choice we have is to make peace with it, to accept it, to surrender to it. And then we can look at, okay, what can I exert control over? What can I change? Do I need to repair the relationship? Do I need to have a conversation with a person? Do I need to move away from the relationship? And again, I'm talking about an example of a relationship now. This applies to any area of life, your career, the way in which you engage with yourself, the way in which you engage with the world. It's about understanding that no matter how much we fight against reality, it is what it is, And I think we keep ourselves in a state of anxiety and a state of anguish by trying to fight with the truth, trying to fight with what currently is, trying to wish it undone. And the amount of energy that consumes, the amount of pain and distress that causes us is phenomenal. And it's not easy to find acceptance, And this is why I encourage people to try and find some sort of higher power or some sort of external source that they can basically ask for help when they're struggling with acceptance, when they're really, really in pain and fighting to kind of find another reality, to be just able to hand it over. And it doesn't even have to be, a kind of a religious doctrine. You can find secular ways of having faith. As I said, even if you insert your faith into a higher version of yourself, or a future version of yourself, but just so that you're not carrying around all of the responsibility for your pain all of the time, that you can ask somebody or something for a little bit of help with it. Because as I said, so much of our suffering is caused by our interpretation of the world, the way in which we construct our reality, and the way in which we attach ourselves to painful thoughts, to thoughts that cause us to feel all sorts of horrible sensations and keep us in those horrible sensations. And it becomes very much this vicious cycle. We're addicted to the thought and the chaos and the noise, and that causes all of the really physiological responses at a somatic level, and they become so uncomfortable that we reach to alcohol, or we reach to drugs or food or whatever it is, to try and kind of ease our pain. And consequently we feel worse about ourselves, and the worse that we feel, the more that those thoughts are going to take off. And this vicious cycle of feeling like shit and never actually being present, never finding the compassion within yourself to allow yourself to feel the pain and to let it go. Because part of the reason that we find our lives so hard to deal with, and that we find ourselves numbing out so much, is because we're wishing that our reality was different, and we're hoping that if we avoid dealing with the reality for long enough, that somehow it won't be true. And the thing is, if it's true, it's true. We have to just sit with that. And that can be a really, really difficult one for so many of us. But the thing is, once we learn to sit with those emotions, once we learn to accept them for what they are and not try to run from them and not try to fix them. I think sometimes when we turn to meditation and when we turn to trying to feel our emotions, it's almost again very result driven, and we're just like, right, if I just feel this now, it'll be gone. And that's just not how it works. I mean, we feel it, it's there. Yeah, it's still going to be there in 5 minutes, and it might still be there in a week, but the more we can stick with it and tolerate it, the more resilient we become, and the less of an impact it's going to have on our lives. The more we're able to process it and honor it and let it go, so that it doesn't resonate in our system. It doesn't like stay there, because again, emotions are very much an energy and they have to be released. Otherwise, they're trapped within us. And this is why we experience high anxiety. We experience all of this discomfort, because we're trying to fight, I suppose, somatic responses that have been held in our body for so long and that keep piling on top of each other. Whereas if we just kind of let them flow like waves and try to work through them and be kind to them, be kind to ourselves, be kind to other people, understanding as well that other people hurt us, but they hurt us because of their own pain. They don't hurt us because they're just evil, or it's everyone has their own shit going on. And if we can just recognize people in a very compassionate level and try to see things from their perspective, as opposed to always seeing things from our own perspective of pain and righteousness and kind of, Jesus, I don't deserve this, which is hard. I find it hard. I'm always like, oh Jesus, it's such a one, wrecking my head. And I experience pain, and I have so much pain from my past, and it comes up again and again and again, no matter how much work I have done to get through it. But every single time, once I notice myself being dragged down that rabbit hole of, oh my God, you need to punish this person, or, you need to fix this, or you need to run from this. And I'm just like, hang on a second. Can I find a way to forgive myself? Can I find a way to forgive the other person? And can I find a way to live in peace? Is this serving me? Is holding on to this anger, is holding on to this frustration, is holding on to this hatred doing me any good, or doing the people that I care about any good? And the answer is always going to be no. And it's about reminding yourself of that. And even if you've reminded yourself 99 times, remind yourself another, because it's always going to be the same. Things are never going to change. You're always going to have to work through painful stuff, but you can either work through it or you can run from it. And the more you work through it, the more likely you are to be able to divert your attention to the good in life, to what the person it is that you want to be, to what you want your life to have stood for. Do you want to have lived a life of resentment and anger and hatred? Or do you want to have lived a life of compassion and forgiveness and love? And I know which one I choose. I hope everyone is keeping well. Talk to you soon.